delivering added value to business. And during the pandemic and understanding the challenge of new normal, we believe as a regional alliance, it is our job to support in-house community across the region to understand the impact to regulation and business. What is the challenges and how in-house should anticipate advising business. I also want to use this opportunity to convey that we are so keen to later someday see Bangladesh become our member, a member of APCA. So if there is any in-house council right now already existed in Bangladesh, please reach out to us and discuss how we can build the partnership between APCA and your association. If not yet, I'm encouraging participants in the call to explore the establishment of the country in Bangladesh, the country association in Bangladesh. I was the president of ICCA Indonesia, and Anil was also the member board of Singapore Association. Our learning show us that by having association may help a lot for networking and knowledge sharing, especially as a country with promising economic growth and looking at the numbers of lawyers and in-house in Bangladesh. I personally believe it's about time for Bangladesh to have its own association. As APCA has been set for the regions for quite a while, we are ready to facilitate any association of in-house, including in Bangladesh later, to connect and work together any initiative that could give benefit for all members across the region. Lastly, I would like to say thank you to our member, uh, Singapore Corporate Council Association, for supporting this event by providing its digital platform, making this webinar to be happen. That's all from me. Hope you enjoy this webinar. Have a pleasant webinar and hope it will be a lot of benefit that you will learn today. I hand it over back again the screen and the mic to the moderator, Anil.
Yeah, thank you very much. So for the first speaker is Dr. Khalid Chowdhury. Honestly speaking, those of you from Bangladesh need no introduction to this fine gentleman. An incredible gentleman who has for many years acted as a practiced law and has also taught a lot of the young lawyers. The amount of the young lawyers that I met in December last year who knows Dr. Chowdhury and his teaching abilities are incredible. But along with that comes a whole lot of. He's an absolutely talented gentleman. He's got a band and he sings and a lot of other things that he does. But today he is going to come speak to us from a perspective of a little bit about the regulatory framework and how it may or may not affect the in-house lawyers. Over to you, Dr. Chowdhury.
Thank you very much. The audience and of course the Asia Pacific Corporate Council Alliance, APCCA and ACCA, and Anil in particular and the team for giving me the floor and for the invitation, kind invitation. We know time is of the essence and the times are very challenging. So without much further ado, I'd like to start with my presentation on understanding the Bangladesh regulatory and business framework arising from COVID-19. Firstly, as an introduction, I would say that the legal system of Bangladesh, based on its common law tradition or heritage from the British domain, has seen little changes to its core laws since its independence in 1971. Hence, the time-tested codes of civil and criminal procedure, penal code, evidence, laws of contracts, specific relief, limitations still forms foundations of the core legal practice. In addition, Islamic laws have its influence in family law and in some cases penal law, and to some extent in financial laws. Laws relating to business have developed mostly in a piecemeal fashion. Now, a bit about the in-house lawyering, since it's an association of corporate lawyers, I think it would be helpful. Now, unlike UK and many other or a number of other common law jurisdictions, the legal profession in Bangladesh is not split. Okay. And in order to practice in the courts, one has to qualify as an advocate, whereas a call to the bar from England and Wales would definitely give a person a practical head start in a number of scenarios. Now, despite having some negative connotation in the past, being an in-house counsel is now perceived to be a demanding and challenging one to the profession in Bangladesh. This has been compounded by the fact that we have had just three bar council examinations, enrollment exam the last 6 years, And the last time we had 42,000 graduates sitting the exams with just over 20% pass rate. Hence, many UK and foreign qualified lawyers without a right of audience compete for places in top corporate legal departments, focusing on variety of works. One would be surprised to know that for nearly 170 million people, we have only roughly about 50,000 or so lawyers and just over 1,800 judges. Now, be that as it may, in-house lawyers are now dominating the legal departments in many leading multinational enterprises, banks, telecom providers, and so forth. Now, the Bar Council so far has not seen this in any negative light. Perhaps I would say it's an implied acknowledgement of the demands of the situation. Now, about the business and regulatory framework, as I've said, that our highest law, the Constitution of Bangladesh, enshrines rights to enjoyment of equal protection of the law and to be treated in accordance with law, and in particular, actions detrimental to life, liberty, body, reputation, property of any person to be taken, not to be taken except in accordance with law. Now, there are rights of lawful profession, occupation, and business, and also right to acquire property. Now, Article 44 provides our citizens the avenue for the enforcement of the fundamental rights before the High Court Division of the Supreme Court of Bangladesh by filing an application for judicial review, which is its jurisdiction under Article 102. So any act passed by the legislature violating fundamental rights may be declared unconstitutional, and any executive decisions may be challenged by way of writs of mandamus, certiorari, prohibition, etc. This definitely has given redress to the business community on a number of occasions against encroachment of property, licensing, imposition of taxes and duties where there were no efficacious alternative remedies. Now, the basic laws related to contracts, companies, partnerships, sales, agencies, insurance, banking and non-banking financial institutions, recovery of money loan, insolvency, bankruptcy, etc., are all there to deal with the respective dispute resolution issues. There is a dedicated public procurement regime by way of the relevant act and rules where e-tendering is allowed following international norms and standards. Competition Act 2012 was enacted to promote and maintain market competition by regulating anti-competitive behavior and arrangements amongst the companies. Bangladesh Bank, our central bank, has a supervisory role on a number of issues, including monetary and credit policies, regulation of banks and non-banking financial institutions, development of domestic financial markets, payment system to prevent money laundering, implementation of foreign exchange regulation, etc. The much talked about issues of money laundering, which is linked to proper and fair banking sector or financial sector governance, are investigated by the relevant Financial Intelligence Unit pursuant to the Act, the Money Laundering Prevention Act 2012. Now, the two stock exchanges in Dhaka and Chittagong are overseen under the auspices of the central bank by the Securities and Exchange Commission, formed in 1993. There is Anti-Corruption Commission, ACC, and an independent commission formed in 2003 to look into matters involving white-collar crimes of corporate fraud, including bribery, embezzlement, extortion, and abuse of discretion, etc. There is an updated Arbitration Act 2001 based on UNCITRAL model law to make ADR faster. Bangladesh Labour Act 2006 is a comprehensive code or act aimed at ensuring that rights of workers are protected. The rights of the consumers have been further entrenched by Consumer Right Protections Act 2009. E-commerce has picked up, with the government making efforts to make the country digital by 2021. Steps have been taken to boost up the IT industry by waiver of taxes, declaring tax holidays, etc. Intellectual property rights are protected by relevant laws, including the Copyright Act and the Trademarks Act and other rules. All types of businesses in Bangladesh are allowed, subject to exceptions, permissions being granted. Rapid economic growth, pre-pandemic, of course, enabled Bangladesh to become a lower middle income country in 2015, fulfilling the World Bank's requirements like GNI per capita on that basis. And in 2018, United Nations recognized Bangladesh to be a developing country. Deregulation, privatization, and I would say adequate legal protection have encouraged foreign direct investment in Bangladesh. Now, this is further encouraged, of course, subject to approvals that include 100% foreign ownership and repatriation of invested capital, profit and dividends, and there are various incentives for 100% export-oriented industries, as in no import duty on raw materials, to say one few. Duty-free import of capital, machinery, and spares, etc., are also encouraged and allowed. In 2019, our foreign direct investment hit an all-time high of US $3.68 billion. Now, impact of COVID-19. Now, Bangladesh being the 8th most populous country, ranking 10th in density, obviously the impact of COVID-19 has been disastrous. We have a slum population which is rising, have 1 million Rohingya refugees to look at. We are yet to reach the peak, and current figure stands at over 100,000 people affected by the virus, with death toll approaching 1,400 by the official figures. Our healthcare system has been stretched to its limit. Economy was shut since the middle of March, now with limited opening currently, I would say, with lives being at risk. The pandemic is said to wipe out over $3 billion from our economy. It may lead 1 million people being unemployed, and growth of property may rise alarmingly. And the latest data shows that private sector growth has declined to 8% in this quarter, and the foreign direct investment has seen only an increase of 4%. The government of Bangladesh has provided stimulus package worth $10 billion for many export-oriented sectors, but the banks, but the banking sector itself is already under a lot of challenge due to high non-performing loans, low profitability, and sometimes weak management. Now, there are concerns that new loan opportunities might create additional burden on the banking sector. Now, we can see that it might be quite difficult for us to reach an economic growth as forecasted of 8%, with World Bank forecasting only 2 to 3% this year and IMF only 2%. Now, over 10 million migrants from Bangladesh sent over US $18 billion to the country in 2019, and World Bank and Bangladesh Bank estimates suggests a gloomy fall of this figure by 25% due to the current pandemic. Obviously, unemployment is on the rise in those countries of their employment. In the labor sector, the stimulus has helped the industry to keep moving instead of laying off workers, which would have led to countless disputes of employment, as there were some gaps in the law. Due to that reason, factories would have to shut down, not by the employers, but due to the lockdown orders from the state. Bangladesh garments industry, that accounts for almost 80% plus of its country's exports revenue, have faced disastrous consequences since the hit of the pandemic. At least 1 million workers were fired or furloughed by April, about a quarter of the industry's Bangladeshi workforce. Moreover, now they have to deal with initially cancelled orders, where buyers are now seeking a comeback with heavily discounted fresh offers. Allegedly, some orders were cancelled for products shipped more than 3 months ago. This one report says costs payment of over US $3 billion for products already made, and the cumulative liability for unfinished product would reach almost 10 billion. They mostly pleaded force majeure, and our industry, often lacking the ability to bargain, had to give up to many of those unfair demands. The issue of force majeure is thus largely accepted unchallenged. Now, in the recent years, many buyers also took advantage of, I would say, inequality of bargaining powers, also making suppliers agree on the basis of purchase orders without resorting to the conventional payment by letters of credit, or without even offering a standard sales contract, leaving suppliers without much legal safeguards. As a consequence, today, supplying countries are facing order cancellations, pressure to issue payment discounts, suspensions, and other alterations with no legal avenue to fight back. There are further complications created by deferred payment mechanisms. At any rate, a comprehensive act such as one passed in Singapore would have allayed doubts about COVID-19 being a force majeure event. It might have given parties the relief from performance of contracts, made renegotiation easier, fairer, and taken care of limitation periods prescribed under the general and special laws. As has been said, the pandemic froze avenues of access to justice as the system did not yet evolve on e-platform in March. However, after some initial hesitance, as the virus started to spread, the need was truly felt, and as a result, an ordinance has been passed last month, followed by a number of practice directions allowing courts to perform and function virtually. A comprehensive, digitalized, dedicated e-judicial system is yet to develop. As of now, mostly urgent matters are being heard. The lower tier is also coping up gradually with the e-learning platform. There are many challenges ensuring proper and dedicated platform. Hence, training, fully fledged logistics is the call of the time. Now, even before pandemic, our judicial system had been clogged with over 4 million cases, with ADR not making the inroads as desired due to a variety of obstacles. In a study, Doing Business 2020, the World Bank Forum in Bangladesh has moved up to 8 places to 168 out of 190 economies. And this covered areas such as starting a business, getting necessary permissions, registrations and credits, taxations, trading cross borders, and here most significantly, enforcement of contracts, which is closely knit with efficiency, speed of dispute resolution methods. Here we've been placed at 189. Hence, from filing a case to enforcement of judgment, an average of 1442 days has to be spent has been shown, and the cost of the claim value stands at 66%. Obviously, there is a considerable need for improvement. Hence, what we see, ironically, I would say, on a positive note, COVID-19 may be seen as a blessing in disguise, inasmuch as online dispute resolution is picking up, which would lead to quicker and perhaps more efficient way of resolution of dispute. The final few points. There is a lack of structured, well-reasoned negotiation culture to resolve disputes. Arbitration is somewhat a bit expensive, and there is an obstacle to enforce international arbitration awards when the district courts are seized with the matter. For this, much of the anticipated benefit that would have followed from the application of New York Convention is lost. Now, our Civil Procedure Code has been amended to encourage mediation, but that is yet to be made mandatory in civil suits. It was made mandatory, but yet not enforced, and we are yet to be a party to the Singapore Convention 2019, which I hope we should soon be joining. ADR provisions nevertheless feature under a number of statutes, including labor, money loan recovery, VAT, customs, and income tax. NGOs, our legal aid officers, and community people are also working progressively despite challenges to resolve small claim dispute by ADR mechanism. In the end, we need to fight our way back during and post-pandemic. With the rest of the world, mankind must prevail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khalid. We'll come back to some of those very interesting points that you highlighted. Now, I'd like to move on to our next speaker, Mr. Masoom. Fine gentleman as well. Quite an incredible gentleman that I got to know first in international arbitration stuff several years ago, both here in Singapore and in several other countries. Dispute resolution practitioner who's also a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrator. And while I don't understand your language, I mean, he's all the time dealing with very critical banking, stock market, capital market issues, popularly in the news quite often. So now, what we've asked him to do is also take another 15 minutes. But thank you very much for keeping time. And he's going to be discussing a little bit of the business angles of where where Bangladesh is headed to or is involved in insofar as the COVID-19 is concerned. Over to you, Masoom.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. And thank you very much, Anil. And also, it's a great observation given by Mr. Chowdhury as we discussed that I'm going to deal with the regulatory and business framework relating with the COVID-19. So I'll be into bit depth with the monetary and the fiscal policy because the situation arises. This is something not example before. This is the first time in the history that any government is facing. If you take an example, other pandemic came before, but like a second century, the Anthony plague, or the 6th century, the Justinian plague, or the Black Death in 14th century, or the Spanish flu. But none of the pandemic affected like this time, because this is actually collapsing the whole world. And the way responding the government, it must have to be very aggressive move, because it requires aggressive moves. And that is the reason each and every government has taken a step in terms of the monetary and the fiscal policy. And in Bangladesh, especially, the government has, like the Bangladesh Bank, the central bank, has taken the monetary policy by using all the power the Bangladesh Bank was given by the company Bank Company Act 1991 under the Section 5, Section 13, 45, 49, and 45. All the powers given, use that, as well as the Financial Institution Act 1993, Section 18. By using that, first, what Bangladesh Bank wanted to ensure that liquidity in the banking sector. And that's why adjusting the adequacy capital ratio, like CRR, repo, and the ADR and the SLR. And by adjusting this, what banking channel has around 45,000 crore taka at the moment in the banking channel by that adjustment of the ratios. But what happened in the another initiative taken by the Bangladesh Bank is straightway that loan classification, it will be suspended from January to June. Nobody will be classified as a defaulter, and then it extended to the up to September. Another initiative taken to have the liquidity in the banking sector, that all the banks, the December closing, so it's generally will pay off the dividend. So what Bangladesh Bank given, okay, you can have the dividend if the banking institution, you have like at least 12% adequacy ratio, then you can pay highest 30%, 15% cash and the 15% your stock. And 15% cash, what you are going to pay off, it will be in September, but is still trying to relax that. So at least the banking channel will have the liquidity. But by doing that different stages, there are 17 banks considering with that regulatory framework that they will not be able to provide the cash dividend. And then April and May interest being suspended by the central bank, and is subsidized by the government, because the total interest comes around 16,500 crore taka, but that's subsidized by the Bangladesh Bank. It's a government given 2,000 crore taka. And then for the SME, it has a huge, large scale. For SME given 3,000 crore taka, because the SME pay lending rate is the around 24%. So what Bangladesh Bank did, okay, 1% is the charge they're charging, and giving the commercial banks, the commercial bank is going to do service charge 2%, and then it will be given to them, the NGOs, 3%, and they can pay around lending around the 9%. That is the highest cap. As well as for the farmers, it has given like 50 billion or 5,000 crore taka, and that is at the rate of the interest rate 4%. So reduce it. Now, what happened in Bangladesh, the banking sector, the infrastructure is worse before COVID-19, because we have a huge NPL and write-off. Around is the government official record is like around 11% above. Like if it's our lending is 9,76,000 crore taka, out of this is the government saying that is 11% above, but the IMF is saying that around 24%, it means 2,40,000 around the NPL and the write-off. But what it's happened here, that there are certain rules it had in a banking sector, or the Bank Companies Act, which is actually changed to accommodate some of the business people. Like from a family, it was before 2 people can be a director. Now it's the 4 people, and the around from 1 person can be 2 terms as a director of the bank, but it's now the 3 term. It's meant the 9 years. So the changes of the Bank Companies Act 1915 COCO and the 1510, and also there are other changes done, but especially the bank directors, they actually taken loan around 1,73,000 crore taka from the banking channel. So the board and the management, there is no actually separation. Is the management generally gets the dictation from the board. Now, what's come up with the one of the unit financial institution division in February, given some amendments around 50 clauses of the Bank Companies Act to the Bangladesh Bank, and Bangladesh Bank more or less agreed with the 90% of it. If it's, then the banking channel can be again in reshape, what's generally we are expecting. Then if you come to the capital market, what it happened during the, because the capital market last 2 years is suffering worsely. Just give you an example of the overview. In 2010, our market cap was 3,50,000 crore taka, which is 50% of the GDP. And the index was DSE around 8,000. But if it's in 2020, if you consider now, it's like a 3,10,000 crore taka, and the investment market cap to GDP is like below 12%, and the index is less than 4,000. So that's the reason Bangladesh Bank actually directed to other banks, you must have to invest at least 200 crore taka in the capital market to provide the liquidity support. And for that, the banking actually, they had a requirement from the Bank Companies Act 1991, the section under section 26. Like before it was that for your, what is the liability of liabilities 10% you will have to invest in the capital market, but now is the your paid up capital and the reserve of, it's a 25% you can invest in the capital market. But the institution, they're only investing on an average like 13 to 14% of their capital. So that's the reason the February 10th, Bangladesh Bank directed to the all banks that invest the 200 crore taka each. And then on 19th March, as due to the COVID-19, the price was falling directly. Bangladesh Bank came up, the Bangladesh Security Exchange Commission came up with a thought that it's going to introduce a fixing a floor price, and which is like a previous 5 days average. So the stock price will not go down or will not become the cheaper. So you can trade on the floor price, but the thing is that it's not going down, it's not going, it may go up, but not down, to save the small investors and the people those are doing the business by margin, to save them. And then what happened in 26 March, we have a holiday because of the COVID-19, and 26 to May 30, the market was closed. But in the world, anywhere in the world, nowhere the market was closed but Bangladesh, because we don't have the automation. Due, it was 1998 to today is the 2020, 22 years past, DSE or the CSE failed to do the automizations. And another reason, the commissions, there are 5 members, 3 were tenure expired, so they had to leave, and quorum was not fulfilled because quorum is 3, so they couldn't take the to resume the market. But if you see the chart, there is a practicality. It's a Pakistan, Jakarta, and the Vietnam and Bangladesh. You can see around somewhere 3,600 for mid of March, the market was closed, and that's why it didn't go any trade. But all over the country, world, everywhere the trade was continuous. But hopefully, this new commission, they have taken as a challenge, and they will introduce the automation. Hopefully, in future, will not take this place again. In a fiscal policy, in relating to capital market, government has given some taken some initiatives. Like, in budget, there are 2 parts. One is the literature, other part is the actual accountancy. So in literature part, what government promoted is saying that participation of banks and non-banks will enhance, and the credit facility of merchant bankers and institutional investors will enhance, and the capacity of state-owned ICB will enhance, and also the confidence in the market will take more steps, and also increase the institutional investment, and as well as the more IPOs or the good quality of shares will come in the market. But the accounting part, what I see, that in a bond, they reduce the source tax on the transaction and the interest, as well as the dividend income. It was free up to 25,000 taka. Now they made it 50,000 taka. And the double taxation for the listed company, they remove it, as well as there is a law in 2019, we call it Ortho Ain. And there was a 16F and 16G they introduced, that after the profit or the net income, you have the whatever the amount, you can take up to the retained earnings 70%, and after that the 30% you will have to pay off as dividend, and that 30% you can do 50% cash dividend, 50% stock dividend. And that is, if you do more stock dividend and less cash dividend, then on the stock dividend, whatever you paid, you will have to pay tax 10%. And that was actually ensured. And another thing about the undisclosed money in the market, they inspired that you can invest in the capital market, but with a lock-in 3 years. You cannot withdraw your money for 3 years. But that's not actually in other industries or even money market. It was not given that way, but the condition imposed only for the capital market, which is not inspiring for the capital market investment. But if you see, just give you a big gist of the price earning ratio compared to other countries. Like in Bangladesh is the P of the market, it's like it was in 14.25, whereas in India it was 28, and dividend yield it was 4.24. But in Bangladesh is the P at the moment, it's 10.5, money below 11%. So this is a very good market to invest for the investors if anyone is inspired to invest in that market. But that was the what's the monetary policy relating with the money market and the capital market. The overall, the fiscal policy, I'll just touch a little bit, not much, I'll not highlight that. It's just a given cash incentives for the 5 million families, each 2,500, and export-oriented industries given 50 billion for the salary stimulus package, cash aid, food, and 100 billion for the emergency crisis. Especially corporate tax is reduced. It was like a 35% before. Now it's a 32.5. 2.5 is reduced for the unlisted company, not the listed company, because listed company is 25%. And for the individual tax, the slab was 250,000. Now is the 300,000. It's a free exempt from tax, but above that, it was before 10%, now it's a 5%, and the highest was the slab 30%, now is the 25%. So that was the fiscal policy overall. But if you see how the government is going to get all this money, as Mr. Chaudhary also mentioned that the fiscal stimulus package, there is around 1,03,000 crore taka, and it's a 19th stimulus package, which is a 3.7% of the GDP. It's the all economists, it's myself, I think, what the way government could do. Firstly, there are more like unnecessary expenditure, and the ADP budget cut could done, where it's a 2,05,000 crore taka at the moment for this budget. I think that could be reduced, because there are some running work in the running project, which is 10% or 20% or 30% completed, which is not going to do more employment or not connected with the health or the COVID-19. So we could postpone for a year and could continue afterwards. That fund we could inject in the money market or the capital market. And the second one we can get is from the World Bank or IMF or the ADB, because we have an excellent record for the borrowing, because we have external debt around 15%, and our public debt ratio is 35% to GDP, and also annual debt servicing only just 10% of our reserve. So it's a very good position, and we never missed our payment like Argentina or other country. So still, World Bank giving us $300 million. At the same time, IMF is saying $732 million. So the foreign from the budget we are seeking is 76,004 crore taka, but I think if we want, we can have more. But thirdly is from the banking channel borrowing. Last year we had a target 47,000 crore taka, but we ended up with 82,000 crore taka from the banking channel. This year the budget targeted about 84,000 crore taka, with what I think it shouldn't be from the banking channel, because banking channel already under pressure. And that's why we have an option, like there is a national checker bill introduced this year, 2020, whereas all the government corporations fund taken into the government banks account, it's a 2,10,000 crore taka. So I think that fund can be injected through the banking channel and the what is called our capital market.
Wrap up in a minute or two, please.
Okay. So lastly is the printing money, what is Bangladesh Bank. Give me 5 minutes, I can wrap up quickly. As last, the printing money from the Bangladesh Bank, and that is what I don't think it should be, but Bangladesh Bank is saying that, okay, stimulus package 50% will provide and 50% the banking channel will provide. Lastly, whether the Bangladesh government is obliged to do it, yes, in our constitution, in preamble straight said, this is fundamental human rights for all the citizens about the economic and social the security. And also Article 10, Article 15, where it's saying specifically is the state responsibility to ensure the social security as well the basic fundamental rights. And whether the stimulus package government can introduce within, because the parliament was not in session, in our country, we had a Communicable Disease Act and the Disaster Management Act 2012. Under this, government can, and because of after the parliamentary session, as the finance bill, then it will enact, and afterwards it's a finance act. So government has the empowerment to do it. In short, the budget, it's like 5,68,000 crore taka, which is in $67 billion, 18% of the GDP. And if you see the generally 3,30,000 crore taka we are getting from the revenue, and the NBR will arrange, and the deficit around here, the bank borrowing and the foreign source and the saving certificate and from the leasing company as well. And then you see the sources we are going to spend, or the allocation is the education around 14.6%, and the what is called the health, you see around 4.9%. So in general, in education compared to the GDP, we have ratio wise it's at 2%, and compared to the health ratio-wise to GDP, it's a 1%. It's a very minimal investment. I think government should increase on that, and hopefully in future government will do it. As the GDP, Bangladesh government is saying that this year will be 5.2 and next year it will be 8.2, their target. But the World Bank is saying this year will be 1.6 and next year 1.1, whereas the India will be -3. But the IMF and the ADB, they're saying more around 2% to 3%. So still we will be in positive remarks. But if it's given by the Bangladesh Bank one specific configuration relating to GDP, like 8.15 last year, this year 3.8, next year 5.7. Export, it was 10% growth, but this year we are reducing because our export until May, it was like a 30 billion compared to last year, it was 37 billion of this. And the import, we had also reduced because it's a 42 billion this year up to this time. And then the last year it was 47 billion. But the main problem is because we don't have much import. Import is the raw materials, which will create your employment, at the same time consumption, and as well export, because we do the finished goods and export it. And current account balance, we are always having the minus because we have the huge trade deficit around $14 billion, and that is the reason we are having the current account balance minus. The private credit sector growth, that is the most important part, because in Bangladesh, it was like 5 years before around 18-19% our private credit growth, but this year came to 8%, whereas our private investment, it was like last year even 23%, this year became around 12%. So we need to, because government need to ensure that the private investment goes more. The last part is like we have the highest remittance this year because of the 2% intense incentive given by the government is the 17 billion, and we have 12 million people across the world. And also the foreign reserve, because of the less import and the less export, we have 34 billion foreign reserve, which is also more than previous year. Just last bit is the according to BTRC, we have internet user around 100 million out of 170 million. Think about how boosting it is. And then Oxford Internet Institute, out of their research, they found out like 650,000 registered freelancer we have. Out of that, active is the 500,000. Those are the active freelancer, mean the online labor, and they're earning $1 billion. And outsourcing labor out of 100, 24% doing the India. And next is the Bangladesh doing the 16%, even above China, even above USA. And above all, we all are young, you see, and 65% is still young. We have much more to do with. And for my presentation, make it quicker and easier. Some terms I use like crore is 10 million equal to 1 crore, and 100,000 equal to 1 lakh. Because of the local participants, I thought it's easier to make them understand. And thank you very much. And it's because I've taken bit time. It's too much to cover. So fast had to do it.
And thank you, Masoom. I must apologize to the participants. We're only now left with 10 minutes to discuss some of the issues. What I like to say is this really is about a micro level, because talking about regulatory and business framework arising out of COVID-19, you really have to go to a micro level. Yeah. What we've heard so far is, I'm going to focus it down to micro level, because what we've heard so far is Masoom has talked about it from a macro level, right? From a macro level, I think the essence of why he's done that is The Economist last year in December 2019 described Bangladesh as one of the leading growth countries in Asia, if not the world. And there were comparisons with Myanmar, Vietnam, and some of the regional countries, right? So I suppose what Masoom was doing was showing us a little bit of the confidence level, the banking sector, how the banking and the capital sector has put into perspective, and keep that level up. Because as much as we need to talk about the micro level immediately coming out of COVID-19, what we need to do right? We need to get a long-term, bigger picture, and that's what Masoom was covering. But I like the fact that he then went down to describe what the government has put in place into cash and for the people and export for oriented developments. It's very unlike the other countries that we had discussed. They all talked about regulations and things that have been put in place for that growth. So I appreciate that. Coming to Dr. Khalid, you know, I like the fact that you spoke about the in-house practice and then the load that they are facing and the issues that they're going to face when dealing and coming out of the COVID-19. You spoke about force majeure, right? A critical thing about people wondering whether force majeure is effective or not. Just a quick general view: force majeure is a contractual provision only if it's stated in the contract, and you must describe it. If you don't describe it, there are certain criteria you need to satisfy and all of that. But you also compare that with force frustration. Now, in the overall picture, the scheme of things, people want to know that coming out of the pandemic, how are they going to face and how are they going to deal with issues that are of concern? Dr. Khalid, you spoke about the digital system in the courts and ordinance and in how a dispute resolution may go one way. So the kind of questions I want to ask is this. There are a couple of questions that are really micro level, 3 questions, we'll deal with that, but we only have about 9 minutes left. So essentially, are there a clear framework put in place in terms of taking care of the people first, right? I know Masoom has talked about investment in a larger scale, but how about the people? Is what Masoom said about the cash and then for export and all of those things, are those the relevant aspects that are taking care of the people? Dr. Khalid first, please.
Well, one of the things that if it is a stimulus package that has been given, it is mostly for the export-oriented industries. Now, we do have, I think, 2 million plus taxpayers, 2.6 million taxpayers who are actually in the private sector, like, you know, so we're not in export-oriented industry. So I think this is an issue that we are not getting a stimulus in that sector. So that would probably make a number of enterprises going redundant and out of business. And of course, we should support our export-oriented sectors. But if I think a stimulus package, perhaps on a bit of a more fairer distribution and allocation, will take in more care and encourage people to, you know, fight back in the post-pandemic. I think that probably would be an issue. And also healthcare, you know, healthcare is a big issue. Obviously, health and education both, more needs to be done, I would say, in that.
Okay, thank you. Now, on taking that point, Dr. Khalid, Masoom, you know, you talked about, you know, how the government has parked aside money for cash to be given out and how the government can improve on that or where it can get the funds from. Do you have any additional points, you know, coming out of this straight away? There are, I mean, you said about the number of people that are affected by the COVID-19. Are the packages in an overall, in just a 2-line sentence, and the overall packages that you've described, do they take care of people?
Yeah, there are like for the, you know, the SME, the small investors, there are some NGOs, they are providing that loan that is from the Bangladesh Bank, is giving by paying 1% charges, and that's to the commercial banks, and commercial banks will charge 2% and 3% they will provide them. It used to be around 24% interest rate, but the cap is 9%. But the thing is, over here, what is the problem we are facing is not the discharging. There are stimulus package given for the small companies and the big companies. Like the big companies, 30,000 crore taka, and the 20,000 crore taka for the small and medium industries. But these things, and also for the agriculture, the farmers also giving. But this stimulus package is already there, but not that fund is not releasing from the banks, because bank is not getting the assurance from the government. Bank is seeking that give us the assurance or the bond, guarantee bond, then we can take the risk, not we are, because these people are already losing money. They don't have any security to provide. So we are not going to take the risk. You take the risk and then you put. But the government is not doing it. What government need to do without any condition, I think need to spend money or give money to the ordinary people to spend, to consume. Once they consume, the economy will run, GDP will grow.
Okay, thank you. Now, in that, there are 3 questions in the Q&A section. 2 of the questions relate to what you just described. One gentleman said, is there an additional incentive or easiness for foreign companies and entities to enter Bangladesh through the FDA due to the COVID-19? Let's say, for example, manufacturing. And second one is, what is the incentive from BD? I don't know what BD means, or Bangladesh government.
Bangladesh.
Sorry, my apologies. Bangladesh government for the establishment of joint venture companies during the pandemic situation. Now, when you answer this, right, please take note. Just talking about joint venture companies is too micro. You know, let's talk about a bigger picture about, you know, setting up companies and all of that, and free foreign direct investment. So just a couple of lines on that for Masoom, please.
Okay. So the our foreign investment, unfortunately, this year it's reduced to 1.6 billion, though it was last year it was 2.88, and then before year it was 3.61. But that's the reason government has taken initiative like One-Stop Service Act 2017, make it easier and one-stop service for all the regulatory bodies. What it happened, you know, recently there is a move from the China. All the factories wants to move, especially Japanese company wants to come to Bangladesh, which is like offered by Indonesia, Vietnam, and others. They're giving some stimulus packages like the tax incentives. Same way, Bangladesh government is giving them, offering more tax incentives in terms of the, you know, the the EPZ, the economic zones.
Okay,
and if you invest there, yeah.
Yeah. So, Dr. Khalid, taking up on that point, there's the last question in the Q&A was that we are a private company from Indonesia, intend on expand the business in Bangladesh, and we would like to establish the local entity company there. Further, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, whether or not the timelines and durations for establishing a company in Bangladesh are still normal, or does it require additional time?
Well, our company laws are very equally applied. So there is no bar for an absolute foreign-owned entity to come and set up companies in Bangladesh. There's no problem. You just go through the usual procedures. So as far as pandemic goes, you know, if the government is shut down, and obviously offices are not working. So once they reopen, things will be business as usual. At the moment, we're just fighting the pandemic. As I've said, the health sector and other sectors are right. But the good news, on the positive note, there is no discriminatory policy. Rather, it is 100% encouraged for the foreign enterprises to come to Bangladesh, or you can even set up a branch office. For example, here you can set up a branch office and operate through your branch and then do business with ease.
And I suppose, right, it also stems on the 2 points. One, Masoom had mentioned about the investment framework and the strength of the country is still shown. Two, you talked about, actually Masoom also talked about how there are 1 million internet users, right? Yeah. And you mentioned
100.
100 million, is that right? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, and Dr. Khalid, you mentioned that the digital systems are being put in place, right? I remember reading a couple of years back that Bangladesh is about the most advanced tech-savvy nation, one of the most tech-savvy nations. So if you put that all collectively, in answering the question, if your system of registering your company are online and all those kind of things, you could move along. So there might be a greater drive to push those digital incentives and digital drives in a fast pace, right? And then if Masoom's point about, you know, if the government can put aside enough money for the people to take care of their interests, and then consider the banking regulations and the banking framework helps to put confidence into people, right? It is a multi element system that's put into place, and then to move forward the confidence. And I think then there are no other questions.
Can I add you 1 minute?
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Like BIDA already for the foreign investors, like the one-stop service, they are providing the online already 24 services like the utilities, like gas, electricity, or even the company registration. Those are the company, manufacturing based company in the EPZ. But those are the company for the intermediaries, which will come straight away to Bangladesh and do the intermediaries business. They might need to go some of the offices. But if you are the foreign direct investors and the manufacturing sector, you don't have to go to all the offices. It's the BIDA will arrange everything for you. It's already, it's a one application you do and it's finished.
Okay. You know what? We just come up to the end of the hour, and I just like to make 2 points, and I'd like both of you to share your views on it. Bangladesh is coming up to half century in 2021. All right, with the economists saying what they said about Bangladesh last year, and the framework that Masoom had described, do you agree that you are actually quite poised to come out of this and move on a fast track leading to next year and possibly showcasing that it is a concrete, safe place to do your investments and incredible opportunities? Both of you, do you agree with that point?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. We have to fight. And the best part is, come what may, even the garment sector will pick up because they will need clothing, isn't it? I mean, if you look at post-pandemic, the new types of clothes and designs, I think, and that is where our main revenue was coming from. And they will need workers as well. So our stronger platforms will definitely come back strong. And in that way, we might be offering even greater opportunities, because you see the problems with China and other nations that is picking up. We should be able to see the opportunity and make more sort of diplomatic ties and collaborations and move further. So I'll be very optimistic to fight back.
Masoom, on that point?
I think it's going to be V-shaped for us if we just can control our health part. And I think it will be easier. It will not be that far. If we can control it, it's not going to be the U-turn for us. It's going to be V-turn, V-shaped recovery. And there will be many foreign investments from Japan, from Europe, even from America. Even today, our newspaper said that Chinese is giving us the tariff relief. So we can sell anything in China market without any tariff. It means our economy will be more boosting, like what we have the foreign reserve today, 34 point something billion, is going to be, I hope, 50 to 55 billion within 2 years.
Thank you. And then the last point is this. My experience with Bangladesh has been with the lawyers. And I have to say that, my experience has been absolutely incredible. The knowledge and the need for knowledge from the lawyers who are practicing in-house and in private practice has been incredible. And the exchange and wanting to be part of the world and all of that. My view is that sets a clear framework that shows to the world at large that you are a country that has got a structure in place, an infrastructure in place that can deal with the future and can live up to the reputation of what the economists had said about the fastest growing country and lead towards this thing. Your just one-line views on that, please?
Because at the moment, we're not investing much on human resource. What we must have to do it shouldn't be 2% of the GDP. It must have to be at least 6 to 7% of the GDP. Once we can do it, I can tell you within 5 to 10 years, it will be a developed country. There is no doubt, because we have that resource, we have that charisma, we have that ability to forecast these things.
Brilliant. And Dr. Khalid?
I was actually frozen when you asked the last question. I could not hear. Can you repeat?
Sorry. The last question was that the fact that my experience has been with the lawyers that you have, and it's an incredible bunch that are really educated and have a great desire to want to learn and come on the world platform. So with that kind of an infrastructure platform that you have, I feel that you guys are poised to be able to service the world, in aspects of banking, finance, and in your investments and all of that. Would you agree with that?
I think, as I said, that every cloud has silver lining. So I think the online platform will pick up. And once we are flourishing through the ADR and litigation regime through the legal platform, because I have never seen, Anil, so many talks and so many webinars taking place in Bangladesh in my entire life. That has happened last 3
years.
World
over.
I'm still over there. So this sharing of knowledge, even I had to prepare for today, isn't it? So this is where we share information, we learn from you, you learn from us, and that's why I think we can move further ahead to better things in future.
Okay, thank you. To wrap up, we'll just have a quick, our Secretary General will just have a quick word to wrap up this evening. Thank you very much.
Well, Anil, thank you to appreciation to the moderator who's been leading us to very interactive discussion. So what I would like to say is thank you so much for the speakers, Dr. Khalid and Mr. Masoom, for being with us. Appreciate that you make your time. And then also, of course, thank you so much for all participants who are joining today. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
And,
wabarakatuh.
Just to wrap up, we also had gone live on Facebook. Next Friday, we go off to Vietnam. The week after that, we go off to Thailand. So do please look out for it, and then we'll discuss similar issues out in those countries as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Have a great weekend. Good night.
It was pleasure to be with you.
Pleasure. Thank you.